Today, on Guess What I Found Out, I'm going to ruin the most famous dinosaur on Earth for you, and then hand it back better than I found it. The skull of a T-Rex was up to 5 feet long. That is roughly the height of an adult woman, just the head. And here is the embarrassing part. For most of the last century, almost everything the experts confidently told you about this animal was wrong. The posture, wrong. The skin, wrong. The face, wrong. The arms, badly misunderstood. So let me introduce you to the real one, a creature I am now legally obligated to call the murder ostrich, because by the end you will see why that fits better than you think. Start with how it stood. In 1915, the president of the American Museum of Natural History unveiled the first mounted T-Rex, body reared up nearly vertical, head high, tail dragging on the floor like a heavy rope. It looked like a lizard standing at attention, and that image went into every textbook, toy and movie for the next 77 years. There was just one problem. By 1970, scientists realized a living animal physically could not hold that pose. It would have dislocated its own hips and put constant catastrophic strain on the joint where the skull meets the spine. The mount finally came down in 1992. The real murder ostrich ran horizontal, head forward and low, tail straight out behind, as a living counterbalance. A 2021 study even modelled its tail and found it bounce gently with each step, storing and releasing energy like a loaded rubber band, giving it a comfortable walking speed of about 4.6 kilometers an hour. The same efficient walking trick your own legs use. You could, in principle, take it for a stroll. If you enjoy watching childhood certainties get quietly dismantled, follow the channel, because that is the entire job here, every single week. But here is where it gets strange. Did it have feathers? The honest answer is not yes and not no. A small early relative from China, De Long, turned up in 2004 covered in fuzzy proto-feathers. Fine, scientists said, the little ones were fluffy, the big ones lost it. Then, in 2012, a 9-meter feathered monster called Tyrannosaurus showed up and detonated that tidy story. So what about Rex himself? Preserved skin patches from a specimen nicknamed Y-Rex showed scales, small, pebbly, mosaic scales, on the tail, hip and neck. No feathers there. The careful verdict today is that the murder ostrich was mostly scaly, maybe with a thin strip of feathers along its back, maybe none at all. Not a giant bird, not a bare lizard. Something in between that nobody ever put on a lunchbox. Now, the arms. Yes, the famously tiny arms. 1 meter long, on a body over 12 meters, with a range of motion so limited it makes you wince. And yet those little arms had dense, stress-hardened bone and could curl around 200 kilograms each. They were not useless leftovers. They were built to hold. But a 2022 hypothesis from paleontologist Kevin Padian goes further, and it is my favorite idea in this whole episode. He suggests the arms did not shrink to become more useful. They shrank to get out of the way. Picture several adult tyrannosaurs crowding a single carcass, those enormous jaws snapping inches from each other. Long arms would have been bitten clean off. Short arms stayed clear. The arms were not evolving toward anything. They were evolving away from getting eaten by their own dinner party. And the jaws they were dodging? A 2012 study clocked the bite at up to 57,000 newtons in the back teeth. the rough equivalent of a full-grown elephant sitting down on a single point. No land animal before or since has matched it. Here is the part that genuinely surprised me, and well, it's where the murder ostrich stops being a dumb tank. For a century, we treated Rex as big body, big teeth, empty head. Then we look closer. Its olfactory bulbs, the smell-processing part of the brain, were the largest of any dinosaur in a sample of 21 species, putting its nose somewhere near a vulture. Its eyes faced forward, giving it a binocular range of 55 degrees, wider than a hawk, with best-case estimates of vision up to 13 times sharper than yours. And it had a long inner ear tuned to low-frequency sound, the exact rumble big animals make moving through distant brush. Smell, vision and hearing all stacked into one detection system. If you thought the disco death punches from our mantis shrimp episode had the most overbuilt senses on the planet, go watch that one again, then come back, because this thing was running similar hardware in a body the size of a bus. So here is your job today, and I really do want a real answer down in the comments. Now that you know the real murder ostrich, lipped, slow-walking, eagle-eyed, possibly even fuzzy, does that make it more terrifying than the movie monster? Or did the myth actually make it cooler? Tell me where you land, and more importantly, why. I read these, and honestly, the reasoning is always better than the verdict. Which brings us, at last, to the fight that, well, ate up 100 years of paleontology. Was Rex a hunter, or was it just a scavenger? Jack Horner argued rather loudly that it only scavenged. The counter, though, came from the bones of its victims. An Edmontosaurus was found with T-Rex bite marks on its tail that had healed, meaning it was bitten, escaped, and lived. A Triceratops survived a bite to its frill and actually grew new bone over the wound. You do not heal from being someone's leftovers. The answer, after all that arguing, was, well, gloriously boring. It was both. A hunter when it could be, a scavenger when it was easy. Exactly like a lion. The either-or was the real mistake. Let me just hold here for a moment and hand off the strangest twist, because honestly it is about us, not the dinosaur. The snarling mouth with teeth always showing, that icon on every poster. Probably wrong too. A 2023 study found the tooth enamel showed no drying or wear, which only happens if the teeth stayed wet, tucked behind lips. Rex had lips. The terrifying grin was an artistic choice, not a fact. And we keep finding these things not because the old scientists were lazy, but because we dug up more bones and built better tools. A 2026 study even suggests this animal grew for 35 to 40 years before reaching full size, far longer than the fast-living monster we imagined. Around 2.5 billion of them lived and died, and your odds of any single one becoming a fossil we actually found sit near 1 in 80 million. The skeletons in museums are not typical. They are, in fact, miracles. The version that spent a century in textbooks was built from broken bones and, well, a habit of making the unknown dramatic instead of accurate. The real murder ostrich was stranger, sharper, and more completely alive than that cartoon ever was. That is the one that deserved to be famous. If this rewired the dinosaur in your head even a little, hit like, subscribe, and stick around, because the next thing I found out is even harder to look away from. See you there, Curious George.